Good evening and welcome to the April 20th, 2022 meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. Before we start, please silence your cell phones. If you need a listening device, we have them up at the front of the room here. And we have 5 meetings this evening. We have the Police Committee, the Open Space and Township Properties Committee, the Administrative and Human Resources Committee, the Fire Committee, and the Board of Commissioners meeting. And so without further ado, we will start tonight with the Police Committee, and I recognize its chairperson, Commissioner McComb.
Thank you, President Sinai. We have 3 items on the Police Committee agenda tonight, 2 action items, and 1 is a special presentation. So we'll be hearing from our Superintendent, Mike McGrath, and former Superintendent, Mr. Daly. So. Here today.
Good morning, Mr. President, or good evening, Mr. President, and members of the board. It's always a pleasure to be back here in Lower Merion Township, where I spent 39 years serving the community. It's like coming home again. And I've had all kind of memories driving around the township, coming here and coming up the steps here, the steps I've come up so many times over my career. But tonight I'm here as a representative of the Delaware County, or I'm sorry, Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Commission on Accreditation. And I'm here to present the recertification for Lower Merion Township Police Department for completed 5 cycles or 15 years of accreditation. Tonight's also a special occasion because Lower Merion Township Police Department is going to hit another milestone in its history of policing and in the Commonwealth and to the community. And that is they have been 15 years without asking for one postponement or issue with having their accreditation, which is an accomplishment. I served on that commission for the last 15 years myself, and we turn down departments on left and right that do not meet our standards. We turn departments down that's had as many as 12 years accreditation because they fail to meet our standards. And that's the, what it tells your community is that your police department is committed to excellence in policing. And tonight, after 15 years, the commission now recognizes police departments with that many years of unblemished reaccreditation. They acknowledge them as a premier agency. Personally, I believe Lower Merion Township Police Department since 1900, when it was formed, has been a premier agency and has always made a commitment to excellence in policing. And now you got something you can say that has the title. We can show that it is a premier agency. I'd like to present that to Mike. And just in closing, accreditation is not easy. It takes a lot of work. It's hard work. And you have to be diligent and vigilant in all the policies because you're required to make, there's 132 standards, there's many substandards, and you're required to show 3 proofs of compliance every year for a 3-year cycle. Failure to do so would result in de-accreditation. And this rests on the shoulder. I mean, it's nice for Mike and me and other chiefs that have been accredited police departments to take the bows, but it goes all down to your accreditation manager. And you happen to have one of the best in the state. Officer Lewis is recognized throughout the state and by the commission as one of the premier accreditation managers in the state. She pays attention to the details and makes sure that Lower Merion will remain accredited. Thank you for that as well.
Just to add to that, I just want to acknowledge also, as Joe said, Officer Lewis is our professional standards and accreditation manager. And of course, Captain Pasternak, Lieutenant Tucci, and Sergeant Mayer are also involved in the process. It really is a department-wide process to follow all policies, all the standards are in place, and to provide the proofs to show that we meet this independent analysis of each of the police departments for accreditation purposes. So we appreciate the acknowledgement from the state, and thank you for coming out tonight, Joe. Good to see you again.
Superintendent, I'd just like to make a few comments, which is to commend you, command staff, and the entire department, Officer Lewis. This is a great achievement, and it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of diligence, and just to sort of put it into context, Mr. Daly told me before we started, there are over 1,200 municipal police agencies in the state. Only 21 have the premier status, and we do it consistently. So that shows what an elite group we have, and it's a testament to the efficiency and the value of our police department. So thank you on behalf of the township. Now, the next item on our agenda is it's an authorization to issue a conditional offer of employment for an open police position, and we'll hear from Superintendent McGrath on that.
Yes, we gave a test last fall, fill vacant positions in the police department. As a result of that test, Civil Service Commission made certified those who passed all the requirements. We are now asking, or at the point of the process, we're asking for your approval to allow the county manager to offer conditional job offers to those who pass all of the business steps, including the character background investigation. That has been concluded. The issue briefing that you have received,
Always making sure everybody can hear us. You have volume now? Okay. States that we have 15 vacant positions in the department. Unfortunately, we got to the point where we're not going to be able to fill them all with this process. It states here, as of earlier in the month, it was going to potentially be 8 passing everything. We're now down to 7. So we're looking forward to getting at least 7 people potentially in the department sometime over the next couple of months.
Okay.
And that's the request this evening.
In terms of the timing, I'm looking at the briefing memo. Approximately how long from today, all things working out well, would we be able to hire?
It actually states here that the hiring would take place sometime in late June. We may need to move that up earlier in June to get everything done, which is not going to create an issue for us because some of them have Act 120 training and could start in our field training program right off the bat. Those that have to go to the academy, we would train both groups for some in-house training before the others go to the academy. So we're looking to do that early June, maybe late May, but that's still not set in stone yet.
Good. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comment? Jody, anybody online?
There are actually no attendees right now.
Okay. And then I'm going to make the motion for, consider for recommendation of the Board of Commissioners authorizing the township manager to make conditional offers of employment to 8 police applicants who have fulfilled the civil service requirements for eligibility. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Grimes.
Should be 7. Superintendent just said we're down to only being able to offer to 7 at this
7.
point.
7, okay. So I'll amend that to conditional offers of employment to 7 applicants. We have a second from Commissioner Grimes. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposition? Any abstentions? I believe that passes unanimously. We have a second presentation by Superintendent McGrath.
Yes, this is a request to authorize a lieutenant's test. Besides being short the officer positions in the police department, we're short a supervisor or sergeant position and a lieutenant position in command. There is an existing sergeant's certified list, so as we backfill those positions that already exist, we do not have a current list for promotion above the rank of sergeant. The last test list was formed in 2018 by law and Civil Service Commission. It expired in 2020. So this is a request to authorize civil service to hold a promotional test.
Okay. Any commissioners have any questions or comments on this? No Commissioner Gabber?
Thank you very much. So if, this is just to authorize the giving of the test, correct? Not to hire anybody as lieutenant. Assuming we give the test, somebody, when is the soonest that this would result in somebody being hired as lieutenant?
So we found this problem with the entry-level test. The testing agencies that are out there are also having difficulty providing support and the ability to give tests. So we're still in the process of determining what testing agency will be able to provide this testing for us. That's not been determined yet. We also have to present that to the Civil Service Commission. They have to authorize it. So that would be weeks, months to resolve that and be able to notify everybody eligible in the police department to take the test. So we're several months out.
Okay, so even if we give it, because I don't think there's been any kind of presentation to us that, you know, there is a need or there's not a need or what the role would be, even if we do give the test, and let's say it's, you know, we're months out and there's not a need at that time for a lieutenant, would you still recommend giving the test so that we have that kind of foundation for you know, if it's needed?
I do, and we've held off on it because we are so short throughout the police department, rather than taking off. While it's a very important position, you're also then depleting a lower rank whenever you do a promotion, right? So we've held off during COVID and because of the lack of other positions being filled. But we're also looking at a situation where those in command structure of the police department are eligible for retirement. And you're going to be filling that position and other higher positions in the very near future. So we need to have that backfilled so that we have that availability in the very near future.
Right. No, and I think for me, I think that's exactly why I think it's important that we authorize, you know, the giving of this test. I don't know yet whether, you know, where we stand at that time and whether it would make sense to promote anybody to lieutenant, but I think that's a decision we can make down the road.
Well, we do have to come back to you for that as well.
Right, this at least gives us that option where we don't have it right now. So I would certainly be in favor of authorizing the test for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gabber. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Zeloff?
Thank you, Commissioner McComb. And Mike, thank you for answering Commissioner Vice President Gabbard's questions. I had similar questions. So once a list is created for promotion from sergeant to lieutenant, how long is that list valid?
For 2 years after civil service approves it.
Okay, so that's the outside window. Because as you said, you will come back to us and we'll evaluate a level of police management given the level of the police force at that time. Because I don't see it as necessary today, but I think that we'll evaluate it at the time in the future. And so it's a list that's valid for up to 2 years.
Correct.
Great, okay. Thank you, Commissioner McComb.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Seeing none, seeing no public comments, I'll put it in the form of a motion. Move that we consider for recommendation the Board of Commissioners authorizing the Township Manager to request the Civil Service Commission conduct a competitive examination to establish an eligibility list for the position of Lieutenant of Police. May I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Gabber. All those in favor of the motion, please raise their hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Madam Secretary, the motion passes. And that concludes the business of the Police Committee for this evening.
There are a few announcements, if you give me a couple more minutes.
Certainly.
Things are coming up in the next few months that the public should be aware of. Share a screen. There we go. So first, going back to accreditation, besides the state accreditation, which you just saw the presentation for, we also are involved in accreditation through CALEA, which is the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. It's a higher level of accreditation, and it's actually international. Just last month, we went through the process of having going before their hearing board. They do it for the entire country and for South American agencies at the hearing that I just mentioned. And we were approved and given very high marks for our accreditation. These standards are similar to Pennsylvania's and even more in-depth than Pennsylvania. There's a higher level. So as you can see from what's shown up on your screen, it helps show that there's trusted processes and best practices for a police department. Lower Merion is one of only 9 municipal departments in Pennsylvania that is CLIA accredited. And there are 485 in the nation that achieve this accreditation. That's at the municipal level. There are state police and some sheriffs and others as well, but that's municipal. And this is the 3rd time the department has received this accreditation status.
Good.
Coming up shortly, a couple of weekends from now, it will be the next prescription drug take-back day. And that will be held on Saturday, April 30th. Poster on the left that you see on your screen is from the District Attorney's Office, which sponsors the program and collects all the drugs that are acquired from around the county. On the right on the viewer's screen is our deposit disposal box, which is located in the lobby of the police department. So beyond this special day to bring in items between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., residents can buy anytime and drop off unwanted prescription drugs in that disposal box, and they'll be properly and environmentally disposed of by us. Going back to the comments about the open positions in the police department, even though we had a test last fall and we're now in the process of looking at the 7 individuals I mentioned earlier, we have remaining open positions. We can't fill, and we'll have future open positions next year. This is, we have put out the announcement of the test that's coming up. It's on our website, which you see there on the right side of the screen. Deadline for applications is May 16th of this year. The test will be given on Saturday, March 21st. And we've had a fairly decent amount of applications to date. Over 100. We're hoping to do better than we did last fall, and we'll see how things play out over the next several weeks when we go through the process. Yes.
Thank you. Right, March 21st, 2022.
That should say May. That says March on there.
Yeah, it says May.
Okay, thanks for pointing out that's wrong. That would be May.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent, and congratulations on the CLIA accreditation, too.
Thank you. National Night Out is again coming back. That'll be in early August, August 2nd. That's the correct date. And that will be again held at the Wynwood Shopping Center. That's, National Night Out is on Tuesday. We're holding a local one on August 3rd, and that is 6 to 9 p.m. Recently, a local resident reached out to us and about unclaimed bikes that are in our possession. And what we were able to do is working with a local bike shop, you see up there, M+M two-wheelers located in Bryn Mawr, working with the local resident David Broda and HIASPA, who assists immigrants coming to America. They've been in around since 1880s. Doing this service for immigrants. We were able to deliver 5 bikes to the bike shop, had them upfitted, repaired, and maintained so that they could be distributed to, in this case, 5 Afghan refugees. And actually, Channel 6 did a profile on this particular donation, and you could really see from the people that receive these things, it's really helpful. In some cases, it's just really the only way they can get around the city and get to their jobs. So it's very beneficial. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, I imagine that can be life-changing for someone who has very little. That can make a big difference.
If you get a chance to see it online, the report that was done, you saw that from the people who were commenting, how important it was to them.
Excellent.
And just a couple more things. Deer calling will come up just after this, but as was announced earlier this month, there was a very significant investigation we were involved in that resulted in the basically dismantling of a nationwide drug trafficking organization. So the agencies involved in this joint investigation were the Lower Merion Police Department, Upper Merion Police Department, the District Attorney's Office of Montgomery County, Postal Inspector's Service Office, and the Homeland Security Investigations Philadelphia office. It led to the arrest of 5 individuals involved in this drug organization. They were responsible for the distribution of over 800 pounds of crystal meth since 2019. They were also trafficking in other illegal drugs, including fentanyl and oxycodone. The investigation actually started with an arrest we made back in March of 21. An undercover officer assigned on a joint task force with the District Attorney's Office, Lower Merion officer, made the initial buy of 2 pounds of meth. That follow-up to that arrest and the continuation of the investigation led to this wider organizational connections and brought in the other organizations around the country to assist us. It showed that they were supplying not only Montgomery County, but every county in the Philadelphia area, in New Jersey, Maryland, and West Virginia. So during the course of the follow-up warrant services, we seized 83 pounds of crystal meth, fentanyl, oxycodone pills, 17 handguns, including 8 long guns. The handguns actually also included ghost guns. People have heard that term recently. They are guns that are untraceable. They're actually put together by people who get the different parts. There's no serial numbers on them. You assemble these guns, and now you have a ghost gun. The other guns we recovered, some were stolen. In one case, it was actually an obliterated serial number on one of the weapons. So it was, you can understand that the potential what that was going to be used for. We were able to raise the serial number off that through forensic work. Ballistic vests, these drug dealers are actually protect themselves by acquiring ballistic vests. And also $135,000 in cash. District Attorney Steele noted that had that 83 pounds of meth been distributed, it had a street value of between $2.6 and $3.7 million. So it's significant investigation and arrest and helped clear up some of the drug problems that are facing this region.
That's a great result. My understanding was the perpetrators were using the U.S. mails and delivery services to ship
They were
from
using
California.
everything, you're right. U.S. mail service, they were using FedEx, UPS. Any way they could distribute it, they were utilizing it. And that's why those other agencies got involved with the investigation as well.
Good work, and good work to our undercover officer, who will remain nameless, obviously, but
Yes.
good work by all. Right.
And just lastly, I know it's a big topic every year, is the results of the culling process. So we did culling this year, February through April, total of 6 days. It is done township-wide. And of course, our number one priority is the safety of the residents and everybody involved in the process. We've never had a single negative incident related to our deer culling program. And this is just an overview of the 12 years that we've done the culling management, the deer management culling. You can see, obviously, the last year there, the 6 days, we harvested 152 deer this time, which is in line with our average, and it was a pretty good result. We had a really one bad day just due to weather. And over the 12 years that we've been able to do culling, as you can see, 1,565 deer have been removed over a total of 82 days of doing the actual culling. And that's a quick overview of this year's culling process.
Good.
And that's it.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any follow-up questions? Commissioner Zeloff.
Thanks, Commissioner McComb. Mike, I saw the display board on City Ave that's promoting the fact that there's an open window for police applications for those in the community who want to apply to become police officers in Lower Merion Township. I think it's a great way to promote the fact that we have openings And as you said, the window closes on May 16th, and everybody needs to understand there's an open window and it's limited, and that's the only time you can apply to become a police officer, when the window is open.
Yes. And it's in 3 locations around the township as well. And we have had a lot of people comment seeing those signs. So that was added this year because we need to do that. It doesn't take much to online research to see that this is a problem throughout the country
Yeah.
for every community, trying to find appropriate candidates to fill police positions.
And then I'm glad you mentioned the bikes. I connected you with David Broida, and he brought in Kevin Meehan from M&M, bikes that are abandoned or stolen that are being held by the police department. And David Broida has done a great job, and thank you for all of your cooperation in making that happen.
Yes, it's just not us, but others have donated these bikes, and it's an ongoing program. It's a great way of utilizing what would otherwise be trash.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner McCollum.
Thank you, Commissioner Zell. Anybody else? Thank you, Superintendent. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. That
Okay,
concludes the
thank you,
business. of the
Commissioner
meeting.
McComb, and Superintendent McGrath. I will share my colleagues' congratulations for the multiple accreditations and the great work that LMPD, yourself, and the entire LMPD have been doing, as well as that terrific law enforcement success. I think we are all extremely grateful to have LMPD working with us in this township. With that, we are on to the Open Space Committee and Township Properties Committee. I recognize its chair, Commissioner Gilda Kramer.
Thank you. There is one item on the agenda for the Township Properties and Open Space Committee, which is to consider for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners approval of accepting payment for a portion of right-of-way and to grant an easement relating to PennDOT's Belmont Avenue, Rock Hill Road Improvement Project. To start the discussion, I'd like to move that we consider for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners approval of the following: to accept payment of $9,600 from PennDOT for a 268 square foot area of right-of-way at the corner of Belmont Avenue and Rock Hill Road, and to grant a temporary construction easement of 769 square feet as requested by PennDOT related to the Belmont Avenue Rock Hill Road Improvement Project, and to authorize the township manager to execute any documents related to the foregoing actions. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner McKeon. I'd like to defer to our township manager, Mr. McNeely, to explain this project a little bit.
Commissioner Kramer, you've done a pretty good job of outlining what it's pretty much all about, but as you know, the much bigger Belmont Avenue Rock Hill Road project, which has been in design and various stages for over a decade, they're at the stage now where PennDOT is starting to acquire property along there to complete the project if it ever gets actual construction funding to go ahead. As a part of that, they need this little 268 square feet area, which is really amounts to a handicap ramp at the corner there next to the drugstore, where the township has some property that are parking spaces for the trail across the street. It's a very tiny little piece, but PennDOT goes through their own process and determines what the value is, and in this case, they're telling us that their value is calculated to be $9,600, and they're asking if we will accept that in exchange for this little tiny piece of right-of-way.
Are there any commissioner questions or comments? Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you. Mr. McNeely, just a question. I did 246, and I understand this kind of is what it is, but 246 square feet for a signal just seems like a lot of property, and I see on the plan it doesn't look like a lot. But to sort of focus my question, after this is, presuming this goes through, after that's done, who's responsible for maintaining this piece of property? Is it the Rite Aid there, or is it the township?
It becomes part of the sidewalk area adjacent to the Rite Aid. Tell you the truth, I don't know at this point whether we do anything with that strip that we already own
Right.
along there, or whether Rite Aid takes care of it. Good question, but
It's actually
whatever
CVS, I'm
currently
sorry.
happens will happen even after this.
Yeah, if there's anyone from CVS watching, sorry. It is a CVS. I would, it was inadvertent for me.
Yeah.
I would just express a concern. I have pointed out on more than one occasion to our staff that when it snows there, I think more than once, at least once, snow tends to get piled up there in the handicap ramp. And given PennDOT's record for keeping the Belmont Avenue underpass clean, I don't have any expectation this is gonna get any better. And I don't know that we have any influence here as part of this deal to get some commitment by PennDOT to maintain this, but it's our handicapped residents that will suffer if it gets worse, you know, in bad conditions, in snow and other conditions than it is even now. So I would just point that out.
PennDOT will not shovel sidewalks. They will not clear curb ramps. They tell us how they have to be put in, and they tell us how they have to be designed, and change the rules and make us change them periodically, but they will not maintain any curb ramps or sidewalks. So whatever happens there now, I assume CVS probably goes out and shovels the sidewalks along there. That would be the way the process would continue.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to just put the concern out there, but I appreciate your answering it, and I certainly don't think that's a reason to block this. It's just a concern. But thank you, Commissioner Kramer.
Are there any other commissioner comments? Commissioner McKeon?
Thank you. I just had a few informational questions, and I think our township manager should be able to answer them. But, so Ernie, the memo says that it's 268 square feet, and then the letter says 246 square feet. Is 246 the correct number?
Yeah, whatever the letter. It must
Okay.
be a misprint on the agenda.
Yeah, the letter says 246.
46, yeah.
And then it's mentioned about this traffic signal that's going to go in. There is already an existing traffic signal there, so am I correct that this is just to relocate the existing signal?
To redo the ramp and relocate the existing signal pole.
And then the township gets $9,600 for this, so I just was curious, where does the $9,600 actually go?
It would come into the general fund as miscellaneous revenue.
Okay. And then the last question is, if the project doesn't go forward for any reason, would we have the opportunity to purchase this parcel back if necessary?
I'm sure if the project doesn't go forward, PennDOT would have no use for it and would allow us to purchase it back if we wanted to.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Commissioner Gavin?
Just one quick question, Ernie. It says, I guess it's rather ominous in the letter, it says, if you are undecided about accepting the offer, the right-of-way representative will be glad to visit you again to make you, for further discussion of your claim. Is this negotiable, or is this the price?
It's pretty much the price. Okay. The ominous part is, just like PennDOT has the power to take property.
Okay, so there's no point in negotiating. Okay, that's all.
Are there any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'd like to call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended to say 246 square feet, because I will assume that that was a friendly amendment request.
246 feet.
Yes. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Anybody opposed? No. Motion passes. And that concludes the business of the Open Space and Township Properties Committee.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Kramer. Next, we have the Administrative and Human Resources Committee, and I recognize its chair, Commissioner Churchill.
Thank you very much. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first is authorization of disposal of certain public records. From time to time, we dispose of records. Part of them are kept as photocopies, but also it's just they age out after 5 years. So this is more of an administrative exercise. Let me read the resolution. Whereas the Pennsylvania Local Government Records Committee approved a municipal record manual on December 16th, 2008, and amended July 23rd, 2009, that set forth schedules for procedures for the disposal of municipal records. And whereas in accordance to Act 428 of 1968, each individual act of disposition shall be approved by resolution of the governing body of the municipality. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Lower Merion, in accordance to the above cited record manual, hereby authorizes the disposal of the following public records. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Gavin. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, are there any from the audience? Seeing none, I would call this for a vote. All those in favor, please signify saying aye or raise your hand. Those opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, this passes unanimously. Thank you. The second item on the agenda is approval of COVID-19 vaccination test policy for non-union employees. And let me just say, consider for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners approval of a COVID-19 vaccination test policy for non-union employees to be effective 7 days after Montgomery County COVID care cases place in the county into the high transmission/risk status as defined by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Do I have a second? Commissioner Bernheim, thank you very much. Pardon me. I would, are there any commissioner comments on this issue?
Are we going to have our manager present?
No, I was going to ask Commissioner Bernheim to, since he's been working very hard on this issue.
I'd be glad to. Thank you very much, Commissioner Churchill. This is, as well as the next item, a reflection of long, arduous discussions of the board of how to try and best set some policy that guidepost is, public safety, safety for our workers, and as part of this policy is, or this prong is a test policy for non-union employees. We wish we could do this for our Workers Association and for our FOP, but due to labor laws, our inability to enforce it sort of precludes us from doing so, albeit we did present this to them. So the fundamentals of this is that we recognize, or it should be recognized, I think by everyone in the township, that the township has been able during the pandemic to deliver services really without missing a hiccup. And that goes to a lot of hard work that everybody has put through, but there has been times where our workforce has been depleted because of COVID. And we've been down at some points 15 to 20% of our workforce, and we've encouraged them to get vaccinated so that will help keep them safe, their other workers safe, and as well as their families. Unfortunately, the vaccination statistics of all of our employees is not what we would really like it to be. So we have put this into place, and hopefully to some degree it will encourage those who are not vaccinated to reconsider what their position is. So the policy is for the non-union employees who are not up to date with their COVID vaccinations. And up to date is dictated by the CDC and its recommendations, which is the double dose, be it Pfizer or Moderna, and then plus a booster if you've had, that sufficient amount of time that has gone by. There has been some recommendation by the CDC for a second booster for those who are over 50 or have some, compromised situation, but that's not part of this requirement. So what will occur is that we will have, this policy in place so that people who are not vaccinated will have to then submit to us testing results effective 7 days after the Montgomery County has placed the county into a high transmission risk. And again, the purpose of this policy is really to try to encourage those who are not vaccinated to reconsider what you're doing, and then otherwise also to protect everyone else by requiring that these tests be administered to those who are not.
Thank you. President Sinai.
Thank you, Commissioner Churchill, and I want to thank Commissioner Churchill and Commissioner Bernheim and the rest of the board for their hard work on this policy that we are bringing forward. I just wanted to underscore one thing that Commissioner Bernheim said, and I think is very important with this policy, which is fundamentally this board, as one of its core functions, is facilitating the smooth and effective operation of this township. In order to have that happen, we need to have employees who are able to come to work and be healthy. And contagious diseases can spread through a workforce. And one way that one can deal with that is to have people get treatment, get vaccinated in order to mitigate, or get tested to mitigate the spread of diseases, right? And make sure that we are actually able to deliver the services to the township that we need to deliver. So this policy, in my view, is a very important one from the function that we have as a board in the oversight role that we have to make sure that this is able to happen in the township. I will say, I also work at a place that requires me to be vaccinated. And guess what? That is part of, in my day job, what needs to be done there in order to have an effective workplace where people can show up to work and actually run the operation that we need to run. So my view is that this is just part of doing business in the modern age that we're in, and this is what the board should be doing. Thank you.
Yes. You had your hand raised?
I do. Commissioner Churchill, the first thing I'll say is welcome back. Nice to have you with us in person this evening, and looking forward to that continuing. Being vaccinated makes sense, and I think there are demonstrated benefits. And typically, I would think it's just fine to have employment requirements for some employees that are different from other employees, but not in this case. I think that this is a significant change. It would only apply to 20% of our workforce. And I'm not in favor of a policy that can lead to termination. So I would rather that this policy be one that is, or I'd rather that we seek vaccination for employees through incentives. In fact, that is the next item on our agenda. So I don't support imposing this rule on a small number of our workforce.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Seeing none, I would move this to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any two. Any abstentions? So this passes 12-2. Thank you very much. We have one more item on the agenda today, and this is, excuse me, approval of COVID-19 vaccination pandemic bonus payment. Consider for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners approval of a one-time COVID-19 vaccination pandemic bonus payment to active township employees who are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccination status no later than June 24th, 2022. I also, I misread, if I go back to the continuation of the first sentence, when it says, to active township employees hired before April 20th, 2022, who are also up to date with their COVID-19 vaccination status no later than June 24th, 2022. Do I have a second? President Sinai, thank you. Any comments, any questions on this item? Pardon me. Again, Commissioner Bernheim has worked very hard on this, and I would just defer to him for an increased explanation.
Sure, I'd be glad to, but first let me make clear that whatever effort I have in here is no less than anybody else, and there may be others that were greater in putting this together, because once again, this is part of a policy decision that was made with a couple prongs to it behind it, and namely being recognizing that during the period of the pandemic, which a lot of us would like to believe is totally in our rearview mirror, but unfortunately that doesn't appear to be the case. And also as, again, an incentive for those who are not vaccinated to, reconsider, that position. So what the board has decided to do is, from the American Rescue Act Fund, is to have a $1,000, payment to folks who have been with us for this period of time, as just outlined by Commissioner Churchill, and who are, again, up to date with their vaccination. And that up-to-date vaccination date is June 24, to give people who are not now an opportunity to reconsider to their position and get vaccinated, and they would then receive this payment, which the board, again, has indicated has got a dual prong of recognition of the services that were provided throughout the township. Again, at the risk of being redundant, we did not miss a beat. If you ask any of the residents what they noticed different during the pandemic of services, the answer will be absolutely none. We were able to follow through, and there are a lot of people that take credit for that, and as well then to provide that incentive to go ahead and get fully vaccinated with the same definitions that I mentioned earlier. In addition to that, this, unlike the other, also applies to the Workers Association and the FOP. So again, we're hoping that we can persuade those who are not vaccinated, who are members of those organizations, to reconsider, and it's also recognition for the work that they have done, and also for those folks who are part-time employees. This includes those who have more than 400 hours in 2021. They will receive a bonus of $250 if they are up to date with their vaccination. So again, this is something that the board discussed at great length for all the reasons that have been mentioned here, thus far, and this being the second prong of our policy. Thank you.
President Sinai.
Thank you, Commissioner Churchill. And again, I'm just going to echo a subset of what Commissioner Bernheim just said, but first let me say, I think one of the great things about this policy is that it really epitomizes how this board works. I think the genesis of it was the interaction between some commissioners on the board who really, I think, spoke very eloquently about the importance of vaccination and the importance of testing, and other commissioners who had the epiphany that this would be a way to allocate ARP funds in the category of rewarding something explicitly in the ARP funding, in the category of rewarding in recognizing service during the difficult time of the pandemic, right? And it was that confluence together that brought this before the board. And I think this is a great policy. I think it's a great thing to support. It recognizes that we have had employees who have had to work especially hard during the pandemics. It's been trying times for everyone, including our employees. And it recognizes the importance to this community of being vaccinated at best, or at the least frequently tested. And as Commissioner Bernheim pointed out, it is available to all the employees, not just the non-union ones. So thank you to my fellow board members. I'm delighted to support this. Thank you, Commissioner Churchill.
Thank you. Any comments and questions? Commissioner Zell?
Commissioner Churchill, since the previously discussed policy on requiring vaccinations was approved by this committee and will likely be approved later this evening by the board, it does make sense to approve what's before us now as an incentive for employees, and in this case, all employees, to be vaccinated. In my view, it's a much preferable approach. Thank you.
Vice President Gavin.
Thank you, Commissioner Churchill. I think in addition to the incentive, as Commissioner Zeloff just said, I think the reward part is really important. The last 2 years have been incredibly difficult for everybody across the country, across the world, and this township really did a remarkable job. The entire staff, led by Manager McNeely, Head of HR Beth Lillick, and every single employee of this township deserves great kudos for the work done during the pandemic, and just want to recognize all of our employees for that, and am thrilled to support this as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Seeing none, any public comments? Seeing none, I would move this to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. And that concludes the business of the Administrative and Human Resource Committee.
And thank you very much, Commissioner Churchill. Our remaining committee for this evening is the Fire Committee, and I recognize its chair, Commissioner Bernheim.
Thank you very much, President Sinai. We have one item for the Fire Committee, something that we have discussed before, and this is to consider for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners the adoption of a resolution authorizing submission of an application on behalf of the Union Fire Association for a statewide local share assessment grant in the amount of $985,000 from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for the Union Fire Association building renovation project. To start matters off, do I have a second from that? Commissioner Kramer, thank you, Gilda Kramer, thank you very much. So we have discussed this before, that the Union Fire Association has asked the board to give a letter of sponsorship for this state grant, so that basically what they could do is do some renovation to make some space for some potential live-in or bunk space at the Union Fire Company to assist in both their recruiting and retaining of firefighters. So while I know we've gone through this before, if there are any comments or questions about it, they're certainly okay. So is there anybody who wanted to say anything else? Commissioner Kramer.
Yes, Union Fire Association is in my ward, and it is both a very valued and beloved part of my neighborhood. The long-term stability of Union Fire Association is very important to our community. Union Fire has been largely unable to use their hall on the second floor of the building for parties and events for the last 2+ years since the COVID-19 pandemic started. And this has resulted in significant economic losses to Union Fire Association. This grant would enable them to convert that unusable hall right now to living space, and would allow them to improve the services to the community as well as attract volunteers. Union Fire Association is located on Montgomery Avenue in a largely commercial area, and borders minimally on a residential neighborhood, my neighborhood. Union Fire Association has reached out to the immediate neighbors, and neither they nor I am aware of any objections to converting this event hall into living space for firefighters. This use would be, in my view, much less intrusive on the neighborhood than the event hall, so I can't imagine that there would be any objection. And I know that there is strong support throughout our community for Union Fire Association.
Thank you very much, and if I could just amplify one thing before we say any other comments. When you talk about our community, of course, you're talking about the Lower Merion Township, because they are one of the vital cogs within our entire fire service. That service is not just the immediate vicinity in the area where the fire company is located, but the township as a whole. So are there any other comments by anyone else? Yes, certainly, Commissioner Courtney.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnham. I just have a question just to make sure I understand what we're talking about. Is this also the same grant that the township applied for Ashbridge Park? And if so, does having Union Fire Company and the township supporting an application by Union Fire Company make it less likely that Ashbridge Park would receive money?
Yeah. And it's a good question, one that you were kind enough to pose in advance, so it didn't catch anyone all by surprise, and maybe I'll defer to our manager. I think responded to this earlier today.
I did, and of course, no one can say what the granting agency will have in their minds when they make their awards, but they're two very different applications to the same program. So it is the same program, grant program. Of course, as I said earlier today, one kind of leans to serving senior citizens and preserving a historic asset at Ashbridge House, and of course this one goes to public safety and helping out the volunteer fire service. So it all depends upon the grant reviewers and what they consider to be the most important. If they like both of them, they could fund them both, but that may not be likely.
That's it. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Vice President Gabbard.
Thank you. So, Manager McNeely, last time when we talked about this came in at the last second where, the Ashbridge one had been planned. And, I know I did not support this because of the risk where we couldn't say, we thought there was a potential risk. It was in the memo, and we had discussed that there was a potential risk to that grant as well. Has our thinking evolved? I mean, obviously, it's not last second. We've had time to evaluate it. There has been an opportunity to think more about it. From what I heard, kind of the thinking's a little different now, that the risk-benefit analysis maybe is more in favor of the benefit now, or has that changed, or is there still a significant risk that may outweigh the benefit here?
I think it's really hard to say. I just think that they hit different buttons. And so it depends upon where the Commonwealth Finance Agency actually decides to put their weight, if you will, on what they should fund. And of course, this is a relatively new grant program. It's funded out of gambling money, and it hasn't been around long enough to have a long track record. So we really can't even say from the track record what kind of projects do they like the most. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I think, I certainly value the contribution that Union and all of our fire companies present to all of us, and the amazing work that the volunteers and the professional firefighters do. Having not heard anything different from what we heard last time, I do have that concern that this could risk our other grant that had been planned and had been worked on. So I'm not going to support it for that reason and that reason alone. Again, having nothing to do with my support and admiration for everyone at Union and all our fire companies, but that concern still exists in my head. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Do we have any public comment anywhere, Jody, online, elsewhere?
There's still no attendees online.
They're watching the Sixers game, no doubt. So let me just give a quick comment, if I may, Vice President Gammon. Because of this, I asked some other people who live in the grant world, similar to what our manager stated. They said you could get one, you could get the other, you could get neither. But you could also find, if you don't ask for union, the Ashbridge is rejected, and then you could have had union had you asked. That's a risk I don't want to take, given its importance. But the fact of the matter is, nobody knows. Nobody knows. So with that being said, we all call the vote. All those in favor for the recommendation of the board to adopt the resolution, please raise your hand and say aye. All right. Do we have any opposed? 1, 2 that are opposed. So that does pass 12-2. Thank you all very much. And President Sinai, that does conclude the business for the Fire Committee this evening.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bernheim. With that, I will call to order the April 20th, 22 meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Lower Merion. Will you join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Bernheim.
Present.
Mr. Churchill.
Here.
Mr. Courtney.
Present.
Mr. Gabbard.
Present.
Mr. Grimes. Here. Ms. Kramer. Ms. S. Kramer.
Here.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. McComb.
Here.
Mr. McKeon.
Here.
Ms. O'Neill.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen.
You're not voting yet. I'm sorry.
I am.
Mr. Zelloff.
Here.
Mr. Sinai.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. And thank you, Commissioner Stevenson, for getting the roll call right. I'll now move that we approve the minutes of the special meetings of the Board of Commissioners held on March 2nd, 2022 and March 9th, 2022, and a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on March 16th, 2022 as distributed. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner McComb. All those in favor? Opposed? So a few announcements. The board met in executive session earlier this evening to receive reports from its professional staff regarding litigation, personnel matters, Lower Merion School District, coronavirus, and 1400 Mill Creek Road. A few other announcements. There will be an Arbor Day ceremony held on Thursday, April 28th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. at Penwyn Elementary School. Another cleanup weekend will be held Saturday, April 30th and Sunday, May 1st, 2022 from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. each day at the Township's Public Works Complex. Residents may dispose of the refuse and recycling free of charge. You will need to show proof of residency, and recycling must be separated from refuse. No household hazardous waste will be accepted. The township holds different days for that. The township's annual open house will be from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. in the parking lot in front of the Public Safety Building at 71 East Lancaster Avenue in Ardmore. One of these. There are public works trucks there, there's ambulances, the fire trucks, and our, as we discovered tonight, our premier accredited Lower Merion Police Department will be there. And that is a great open house to come to. We also have a proclamation for public service recognition during the month of May 2022 for our dedicated and talented township employees. And I will read that proclamation. Whereas Americans are served every day by public servants at the federal, state, county, municipal levels, and these individuals do the work that keeps our nation operating. And whereas public employees serve in many different capacities within our municipality and provide the residents of Lower Merion Township with many services, contributing to the excellent quality of life in Lower Merion. And whereas the Board of Commissioners recognizes the efforts of our various municipal professionals who on a daily basis take pride in their responsibilities to our community. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the members of the Board of Commissioners, join with the nation in recognizing the week of May 1st through 7th, 2022 as Public Service Recognition Week and call upon our citizens to commend the hard work and dedication of our township employees. And be it further resolved that we, the members of the Board of Commissioners, recognize the week of May 15th through 2022 as National Police Week and encourage Lower Merion residents to acknowledge the selfless service provided by our law enforcement officers. And be it further resolved that we, the members of the Board of Commissioners, also declare the week of May 15th through 21, 2022 as National Public Works Week, and urge all citizens to recognize the vital contributions made to our community by our public works personnel. With that, we turn to public privilege of the floor. This is the section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any non-agenda items or any other public matters in which the township has jurisdiction or authority. As people know by now, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And if there's a group of people speaking on the same topic, we ask that a spokesperson be selected to address the board and keep their comments to 5 minutes or less. Is anyone in the room here for public privilege? If you could come to that podium over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Hello?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You
Well,
can
then I'll
repeat- you
say it
can
again.
Repeat those nice words again. I heard them, but my colleagues may not have.
We want to hear the delight.
Okay, yeah, and it's kind of surprising coming from me. I wanted to say how delightful it was to see all of you here. When I walked in the room and saw all your faces, it was just like really nice. And I just want to say this. I have 2 comments, and I'm not sure. I think this one is definitely on the public privilege. So I'll start with that. Do I have to give my name again? Did you hear that? Was
We
that-
heard it.
Okay. Last year in June, I came before the board to ask you to approve a resolution recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday. I was then told that because I was doing this in June, it was kind of too late for a resolution to go through the whole process. And I was too late to do that. This year, as Vice President of the NAACP Mainline Branch, I brought this up to our executive committee last month. We are now in the final stages of approving the resolution to present to you, and I just wanted to kind of put you on notice, seems like the wrong way to say it. Just let you know that we will be presenting this resolution to you next week. I had the weeks mixed up. I thought this was a special meeting and next week was a regular meeting. So that's my fault. And that's it for this 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we appreciate the heads up, which is the phrase.
Hello, my name's Erin Riley, and I'm the Executive Director of Riverbend Environmental Education Center. And I just wanted to come today to introduce myself to all of you and to just tell you how glad I am to be working here in Lower Merion Township at Riverbend, because I really love connecting kids to nature. So I'm just going to take 3 minutes to tell you a little bit about what's keeping me up at night, a little bit about why I feel hope. But first, 2 things happened yesterday. The first thing was Riverbend received a grant from this Board of Commissioners in support of our work. So we are so grateful to you. I don't know if anybody else received grants. I'm the only person here. But thank you. It's tremendous to have local government support, and will help us keep the preserve down in Gladwin open to the public 7 days a week, dawn to dusk, and keeps us on track to teach 3,000 children this year, the majority of whom are low income. The second thing that happened is in the mornings I often walk in my neighborhood and I pick up litter. And I love doing this because I get to feel superior and self-righteous, as I walk around and think bad thoughts about all the litter bugs who have preceded me on this walk. So I was there and I picked up, like a glass bottle and put it in my bag, and then I picked up a plastic, piece of plastic, and then I saw a piece of yellow paper on the ground, and I go to pick up the yellow paper, and I realized that I recognized the handwriting on the yellow paper. because it's my handwriting. And this is my grocery list that apparently fell out of my pocket and has just been floating around the neighborhood for days. And I realized, I'm the litter bug. Like, what does this say about me? I'm running a nature center. And, you know, I just thought, like, this is why I'm spending your valuable time telling you this, is because this moment sort of felt like a metaphor for what I'm worried about, which is, gosh, it's just so easy to get busy and get distracted and get complacent, right? This township is head and shoulders above so many other townships with the work you've been doing on sustainability. And Riverbend's glad to be serving on Paloma's sustainability committee. So it's hard for me to come and complain to you all who are doing the work. But, you know, I'm on the front lines of learning about climate change and teaching it to kids on a daily basis, and we're just not moving fast enough and getting enough done. This is the decade that we have to make change. So that's what's keeping me up at night. But where I feel hope is that I think it's very crystal clear where we need to go. And Lower Merion's halfway there, maybe even more, you know, where we need to be in the future. And I'm not talking about some far off, distant future. I'm talking about by the end of this decade, where we need to be to pass on to our kids the kind of planet they can really live on. Is we need to have a community where, you know, every building, not just Ballackinwood Library, but every building is run on solar and geothermal, and where we're all composting our food waste in our own kitchens, and where all of us here in this room, our next car purchase becomes an electric car purchase. So, you know, the picture is so clear of where we need to go, but like me and accidentally becoming a litter bug, it's so easy to lose focus. So I'll just say, you know, we're so grateful for the grant, and we are going to keep teaching children to fall in love with nature. But we need the grown-ups to help out, because if we're telling the kids, hey kids, this is what we need to do to reverse climate change, and then they see that the grown-ups aren't doing it or aren't doing it fast enough, then it kind of throws my whole credibility into question for these children. So thank you for the work you've already done on sustainability, the work you're going to do. Happy Earth Week. And if you'd like to come plant a tree with us on Saturday morning, we'll be doing that at 10 a.m. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the room here for public privilege? Seeing none. Jody, is anyone online at all? No, okay. So we had two people submit public privilege comments in advance of the meeting. We have copies of what they sent here at the board. I'm going to synopsize them for the record. Daniel Alva from the Ballackinwood Neighborhood Coalition wrote to convey petitions submitted by residents who are concerned about the impact of development on traffic and safety in Ballackinwood. I'm going to quote a little bit of the key parts of his email. We are all looking forward to the bike and walking trails, parks, enhanced retail, and many other benefits our community will enjoy from the development. Our focus of concern has been and remains traffic and safety. Our hope is that our input be seriously and publicly considered by Lower Merion Township and PennDOT decision makers to ensure a realistic and safe pedestrian, bicycle, and car-friendly environment. We ask for the opportunity to work together with our elected officials, township staff, and PennDOT to benefit all in Lower Merion Township with a safe, thriving, and vibrant community. The other submitted comment was from Kathy Greenland in Wynwood, who wrote about dogs in Wynwood Valley Park, which she opposes. In her email, she notes that Wynwood Valley Park has a tot lot, a playground for older children, is considered a nature park, has a basketball court and a picnic area, and is one of the very few township parks that has all of those. It notes that many parks allow dog access, including Penwood Park that is close to Wynwood Valley Park, and says she believes that allowing dogs in Wynwood Valley Park will increase incidents between dogs on leash and off, and young children who use the playground spaces and beyond, potentially disrupt those using the basketball court area, be counter to its use as a picnic area, and have a negative impact on the park's plants, trees, stream, and wildlife. Does any board member wish to respond to any of the comments? Commissioner Churchill.
Yes, thank you very much. In regards to Wynwood Valley Park, this is going to be an issue that's going to come before the Board of Commissioners probably late this spring. There are dogs in the park. This is not a dog park. Dogs have been in the park ever since the first neighbor set foot in this park. My concern is first the safety of the children that have a play area. There are people that continue to walk their dogs through this area and/or bring their dogs and their children to play together. This is something that I think all of the citizens want to eliminate. Second point, dogs have been in this park for many years, and it was my hope that the Pinwin Civic Association, the Friends of Wynwood Valley Park, and private citizens can come up with a reasonable dog policy. My thinking is that if neighbors create the policy, it's going to be better enforced than not. So just to alert my fellow commissioners that this is going to be on the agenda soon, and I look forward to my neighbors submitting a reasonable policy to address dogs in the park. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Churchill. Commissioner McComb.
Thank you, President Sinai. I'd like to respond to Mr. Alva's submission and to thank him for it and thank him for his work in sort of raising the issue of pedestrian safety in Ballackinwood. It's one of the central tenets of our comprehensive plan is increasing walkability in the township, but it's implicit in any concept of walkability that it be safe walkability. And certainly it's an issue that's on the minds of virtually everybody in Ward 9. We have seen a lot of development. We think the development is good, but it has to, if we're having more people move in and we're encouraging people to take public transit and walk, you have to be able to cross the street. And so we've worked with PennDOT. I know Chris Leswing is in the audience. Chris has had several conversations, probably a dozen conversations with Mr. Alva, with the residents along in the buildings in St. Asaph. So we take it very seriously. It's a priority for me. I think it's a priority for township staff. It's a priority for the entire board, and we will continue to work on it. We will do everything we can to make it as safe as possible. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner McComb. Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you. So I have comments on two of the public parts of the public comment. First of all, I share Commissioner Churchill's concern about the dog park, possible dog park status in the Wynwood Valley Park. I think we not only, before we would move forward, we not only need an effective policy in that park, but we need an effective policy in our other township parks, particularly those where dogs are allowed, like West Mill Creek and Rolling Hill, where to a large extent, I think those have become dog-only parks and not parks for everyone in the township because of the dogs become sort of everywhere in there and are out of control. Let me say before I get a lot of nasty emails, I do respect that people who have dogs need a place to exercise those dogs, and I think they should have a place to exercise those dogs, but the current situations are not being effectively managed, and I look forward to our township staff coming up with an effective policy, particularly if we move forward with Wynwood Valley. On a more positive note, although Erin Riley, I see, has departed, I wanted to thank her for coming tonight, both to introduce herself, which I had encouraged her to do, and also to thank us for the grant that the township has given. She didn't need me to tell her that, by the way. I should be careful on that, but I'm glad she did. I think because we sometimes focus on things that need improvement and don't work as they like, we forget that we have many institutions in this township that are particularly good at what they do and particularly valuable parts of our township. And Riverbend is tucked away in Gladwin, but They provide services to many, many school children in our township and in other townships. They provide summer camp programs. They provide weekend activities for kids, and by the way, not just for kids. And on top of everything else, they have some really terrific walking trails in there, including, dare I say it, something called the Bamboo Trail. So
No,
I say that for this board. So having said all that, for any township resident who has not had the opportunity to visit Riverbend either as part of a program or just take a walk, I would encourage you to do so. And I want to publicly welcome Erin into her job as executive director, though she's been there for, I think, about 6 or 7 months now. And again, thank her for coming tonight. So thank you, President.
And thank you, Commissioner Grimes. Commissioner Sean Kramer.
I'd like to thank Ms. Seltzer for raising the issue of Juneteenth and thank the mainline NAACP for your advocacy on this issue. And thank you for the heads up so that we can be well prepared for next week's conversation. I wholeheartedly agree that this is an important day for us to observe formally as a township. And I've had conversations with some of my colleagues, and I thank you for the nudge for us to revisit the conversation, and I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. Any other commissioner responses? So I'm going to respond just briefly to Ms. Riley and thank her as well, if she is watching this, for coming. Like many of us up here, my kids and family spent a lot of time in Riverbend as well, even being across town from Gladwin. It is a terrific program for everyone, and it's a wonderful resource for this township. And I'm glad it continues to be in excellent leadership hands. I just wanted to highlight a couple things that she said, and one which wasn't, I don't think it's kind of an aside point, but one of the first things she said was civic participation, in essence, and to a degree, she was preaching to the choir here. Everyone on this board is here in large part because they believe pretty fundamentally in the importance of stepping up and participating in their civic engagement. And anyone who's watching this probably is already in that same choir. So I'm wasting it. But this township was built on community participation. Right? In the earliest days, the civic associations, what their job was, what their role was to actually provide civic benefits. Right? People came together effectively in Lower Merion, community gatherings to provide resources and investments for their neighborhoods and their communities. And I think throughout the country, this is one of the things that is eroding slowly in our world, and I think it's important to be reminded that we need to invest in the area around us. We need to invest in our community if we think our community is important and we want to shape how it's going to be. The second thing that she mentioned was sustainability. And I'm really glad that she recognized the township's efforts on sustainability, both of our past efforts and the efforts that are being led right now. One of the first things I discovered in this township was that it doesn't talk enough about the sustainability efforts that it actually does in its day-to-day business, which it does. It does a lot of terrific things. I wish I would promote them more. Having said that, I think one of the big things that we're grappling with, and it is one of the foremost things that we're grappling with, is how to implement important sustainability ideas in a municipality, right? So how do you go from things that we think are important to things that we think are implementable and doable and we can get traction on? And we have many commissioners on this board who are working very hard on this, and many people in this community who are supporting them in that effort. And I look forward over the course of this year, next year, and in many, many years we're going to have to work on this to making progress on it. And it won't be going 0 to 60 in one day. It'll be making incremental progress, but we need to continue to make forward progress on it. Hopefully as we do it, we will publicize it broadly so everyone knows exactly how much this township does. Thank you for indulging me in that. So with that, we now have public comment. This is a section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any agenda items. Again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Hello. Yes, it is working. Adrian Seltzer in Wynwood, again. I just wanted to let our esteemed board president know that you have a sustainability person, Pomona, I forget her last name, and she has reached out to many groups in the township and has done a sustainability survey and is working very diligently on finding the best things and the way to work more sustainable in the township. So I just filled out a whole survey for Stand Up for Lower Merion this weekend. And what can you do to make more civic participation? I mean, I'm basically the only one here, and it looks like there's nobody online. So what can you do as a board to make it more welcoming for the citizens of the township to come? All right, now into my actual comments. Per Montgomery County Public Records, there are 180 township-owned properties. I've requested a list from the township on several occasions and was provided with a list of about 90 properties. I'm bringing this up because with the township's renewed interest in affordable housing, it seems like an accurate inventory of the township properties could be helpful in that endeavor. Also, the search for open space. If you have 90 properties that you're not aware of, that there's no record of in the township, or at least that anybody's been able to find for me, then maybe if you look for them, you might be able to find some properties that could be converted into affordable housing or something that could be used for open space. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment? Jody, is there still no one online?
Still no.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wish to respond to public comment? Commissioner Gilda Kramer.
Adrian, just so that you know, I have been working with the township on a list of all of our properties, and the township is in the process of mapping all of our properties and mapping all of the open space. And this is one of the big priorities for the Town Open Space and Township Properties Committee, so that we can determine how best to use the properties that we have.
I would just like to add that, as Ms. Seltzer's been told, the tax duplicate has every property that Lower Merion Township owns. You've asked that B&P map that for you, but the list is widely available at the Montgomery County Tax Office.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kramer. Anyone else wish to respond? Okay. So now we have the consent calendar. So almost everything's on consent calendar. The only things that are not on consent is the vaccination test policy is not on consent. We will consider that separately from tonight. That was a 12-2 vote. And we have an ordinance later, but everything else is currently on consent. Does anyone wish to remove an item from consent? Okay, seeing none. I will move that we approve the consent calendar, as I just stated, including the items from the earlier committees with the exception of the COVID-19 vaccination test policy for non-union employees. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Gavin. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll for that?
For the adoption of the consent calendar as presented, including all of the items except that one item. Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Aye.
Mr. Gabbard.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zeloff.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The consent calendar is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With that, we move to an item that was on the Administrative and Human Resources Committee agenda, which is an approval of a policy for COVID-19 vaccination and test policy for non-union employees. So I will move that the Board of Commissioners approve a COVID-19 vaccination test policy for non-union employees to be effective 7 days after Montgomery County COVID cases placed the county into the high transmission risk status as defined by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Do I have a second?
You do.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernhardt. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will call the vote. I believe we'll have a roll call vote. That we want? No, we don't need to?
Don't have to.
Okay. Great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. Abstentions? That passes 12-2. The remaining item is a adoption of an ordinance, Chapter 145, Vehicles and Traffic, Oak Road Parking Regulations. So I will move that we adopt an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 15, Schedules, Section 145, 117, Schedule 17, Parking Prohibited Certain Hours, by rescinding the regulation prohibiting parking on the north side of Oak Road from Anthony Road to Haverford Avenue from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., except Saturdays and Sundays, and leaving in place the regulation limiting such parking to 2 hours on both sides of Oak Road. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held March 16th, 2022, and duly advertised in the April 10th, 2022 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner McComb. Anyone have any questions for staff or comments on this? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in this, I do a roll call. Thank you. Thank you. So, okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll for this vote.
Thank you. For the adoption of ordinance 4241, Mr. Bernheim.
In the words of Commissioner Stephen, present.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Aye.
Mr. Gabbard.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes. Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen. Mr. Zeloff.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
And now the Manager McNeely points out that I made another mistake. So we had a 12-2 vote on an item that was on the Fire Committee.
Mr. Gabbard and Mr. Courtney agreed that would be consent.
Oh, okay. See?
We just didn't interrupt the meeting to announce that.
Okay. Nobody announced it. Okay, so there is there any unfinished business? Commissioner Zoff.
Thank you, President Sinai. Former Commissioner Howard West passed away in December, almost 5 months ago. His funeral has been rescheduled, and it is tomorrow at 11 a.m. at Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church. He served the 10th Ward, my ward, for 18 years, and so I just wanted to make that announcement for any who were wishing to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. Any new business? Okay, seeing none, before we adjourn, Ms. Seltzer was not the only one who noticed that for the first time, and I suspect years, the entire board is actually here in person together. And so if my colleagues can just stay here immediately after the meeting for a photo, there's a tradition that we do. And who knows in this world that we're in when this actually will happen again. So we are going to take our photograph tonight. With that, that adjourns this evening's meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners.
Are you in the photo?
That's the board.